No. We spent 3 weeks trying to find this right? Setting them up, and what do we got? The earth-shattering news that I need Teddy to get my money back? What else you want to tell me, huh? Is the sun hot? Is water f***ing wet?
From the beginning of Season 6, there's been a war amongst the Saint family. There's been shootouts, drive-bys, and death, all involving Franklin, Jerome, Louis, as well as Big Deon and Kane. So this wasn't what Leon envisaged coming back to, although he knew his home was far from perfect. But it's changed for the worst. Families are at war. The way they do business at the projects under Big Deon is different, and he faces a huge battle to help the community he feels responsible for. But even though in his mind he's in the right place, in his way was Big Deon, and I think we could all see this from episode 3, that he wasn't fond of how he was running things. But it was when he mocked Leon for marrying Wanda, all hell broke loose. But even though Leon won this battle, the war isn't over. Now coming back to the projects, he's looking at everything from a different perspective. The perspective of influence. Now that comes in many forms and stops you from doing right by your people. There's influence with The Rock, something Wanda seems to be struggling to come to terms with now that she's back at the projects. Influence in the street game, where it seems like Maurice is being swayed by money over education. And that's another influence entirely, money. Money certainly makes the world go round and is the root of all evil. We know that Teddy has his hands on Franklin's 70 million and he can ride off into the sunset with Parisa. But as I mentioned, it's Franklin's money, and nothing gets in the way of Franklin and his cash, which is something that led to yet another drive-by between Jerome, Louis, and Franklin, attacking Franklin and Kane. I think one word that sums up Franklin's current situation is desperation. When things don't go according to his say-so or his plans, then anybody in his way will feel his wrath. Whether it be stealing from Jerome or Louis, biting back at Cassandra, to burning one of Kane's boys' face off, which in the end backfired. But desperation makes people do and make silly decisions, especially when they're under the influence of money. But Cassandra said it herself, in a game like this you need to be patient and calm, which at the beginning, Franklin wasn't. We saw the moves that Veronique and Cassandra put in play with the person that helped Teddy steal Franklin's money, and it was a 3-week plan that they had in motion. Cassandra met with Will, while Veronique had the receptionist take his documents from the safe to where she could take the pictures. But just like every con, nothing ever goes to plan. So when Will had to head back to the office, Veronique put herself in play just to make sure the receptionist made it back on time with the files, like mother like daughter, and that's why Franklin really does need to be tread carefully. Now when things don't go to plan, this is when we see Franklin lose his shit, after he realizes all they'd been working for the best part of 3 weeks were just to find documents and bank transfers, where Teddy had removed the funds. But losing his cool with the one person that can actually help him in this situation isn't the wisest decision, and Veronique definitely reminded him of that. But with cash being tight and Kane's crew not moving enough product for his liking, he made a visit to Kane, where they're not exactly on the same page, but money is the language everybody speaks in this game. So Kane eventually does agree to Franklin going to see one of Kane's cookhouses to see how they can speed up the process.
I built an empire. If you don't want to know how I did it, fine. I thought we was in this shit to get rich, right?
Now it's been a while since Franklin's been in one of these. Cracking was at Season 1, Episode 7, where we saw Franklin take a stroll in Oakland neighborhood, where he walked down a storefront which was formerly a Black Panther HQ, and an encounter with a female junkie led him to stumble across a form of crack rock on straw. He was able to get down to the bottom of who this was made by and how. Now the man behind this was Swim, who he referred to as an artist, because an artistic ways come from more than just forms of music and art, and converting cocaine into crack was one of them, according to Franklin saying anyway. Now this is the first time Franklin found himself in a cookhouse, and he wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty after Todd and the rest of Kane's men refused to follow orders. But burning Todd's face is something that would later come back to almost haunt him and Kane. But as we saw Franklin roll his sleeves up and get to work himself, shows his desperation to get his empire back. Now it was a while before we saw Jerome and Louis, and with everything else going on with Leon and Franklin's money, we almost forgot that there was a war amongst the same family. That was until Todd came in to snitch on Kane's location. Franklin burning Todd's face and Kane putting him back in line made him turn to the other side, and to gain Jerome and Louis' trust, he apologized for the drive-by that he was a part of on the club, but now he wanted revenge on Kane and Jerome's nephew. So this is where we saw Kane and Franklin being ambushed as they were deep in conversation about money and business, but they narrowly make an escape, just about, but also realizing it was Todd who came after them. Now this was a stark warning that the war between Franklin, Jerome, Louis, and Kane may not have been at the forefront of this episode, but it's very much something that is unfinished business. The other big focus of episode 4 was Leon and how he wanted to make a change with the community and for his people, but he soon realizes it's going to be tougher than he first thought. At first, he does try and have a positive impact on Maurice and trying to keep him on the right path with his education. But when you grow up in a game which is rigged, you have to make a decision. Do you fight and do it the right way, or do you beat them at their own game? And that's one of the decisions that's put in front of Maurice, and one where Big Deon's influence comes into play. Now, the influence and decisions that Big Deon started to make since he took over from Leon hasn't gone down well with Lee.
Like you said, laws are changing, right? Police cracking down, harsher sentences. I'm just doing what I can to protect my people.
But this was the realization that Leon came to while he was in Ghana. Selling crack to his people was the opposite of helping, but more so destroying their own. For what? Money. The same thing that seems to have destroyed the relationship between Franklin, Jerome, and Louis. Now, although Wanda was struggling with being back at the projects, being around the crack that once took over her life, she's actually found a purpose, volunteering with Sissy at Alton's homeless shelter. But in the background of this conversation was where we could clearly hear Big Deon throwing insult after insult over Leon's decision to marry Wanda and how she'd been passed around the community before marrying Leon. No doubt, this would have been something that would have ignited some burning fire inside Leon. But before the big fight, he did try and do some good for the community. He paid for the project lights to be fixed, which Big Deon took out once again, which he put down to keeping his people safe. But is this what he calls keeping his people safe? Spray painting another human while they lay helpless on the ground, a position where Wanda once found herself in the not too distant past. Now, gunshot and taking out the streetlights interrupted this conversation between Leon, Maurice, and Wanda, and this led to a massive brawl between Big D and Leon. And the clues were always there from episode 3, how these were two characters who didn't see eye to eye. Now, Big Deon may be big, but don't ever fuck with Leon nor his wife, and Leon certainly makes this clear. This is his shit. But even though Leon won this battle, I do worry for him and Wanda. There is no way Big D is just gonna take this lying down. And as Law 15 from the 48 Laws of Power say, crush your enemy totally, something which Leon failed to do. If he doesn't want any backlash or revenge, then he needed to kill Big D. So this war between Leon and Big Deon is certainly not over. Desperation and influence seem to be a theme in episode 4, from Franklin and Leon to also Ruben, Gustavo, and Teddy. Ruben gets a call about some broken pipes, which was a code for him to get back to work, and he was given the news that Teddy was onto them after the shipment of guns was intercepted in Costa Rica. Now, this made Ruben make a decision to turn his attention from Franklin and Sissy to Gustavo. But while Ruben was putting his new plan in play, Teddy was deep in conversation with Parisa with how she was this close to being adopted by Ruben, tortured, and possibly killed. But in season 5, she did say she wanted excitement, and now she's got it. But she's also put another perspective in Teddy's mind. He has Franklin's 70 million, and he can leave the country and live his life wherever he wants, and possibly even taking Parisa with him. But is Teddy about to walk away from this war? I think we all got our answer. Suspicious of Gustavo, he followed him to a bar where sitting beside him was Ruben. A casual conversation which started off as jokes soon turned serious, where Ruben gave him no choice but to work for him on the same goal as the DEA, but he could offer something the DEA couldn't: fake documents and a boatload of money to disappear, but in return, to give him Teddy and the warehouse with his boss, with all the product, so he could have them arrested. And what choice does Gustavo have? He's already backed into a corner with the DEA, he's working for the CIA, and now the walls are closing in on him with the KGB. And I can only see one outcome for Gustavo: death. Especially because spying on them was Teddy McDonald, and he recognized Ruben from the drawing. So in my opinion, as sad as it is to say, Gustavo is as good as dead. But that's a breakdown of an episode which was filled with different perspectives of influence, desperation for Franklin Sane with getting his money and empire back, and one which led him to make some bad choices which almost cost him and Kane's life. With Leon, it was all about doing right by his community, but no matter how much he's changed, is it too late to fix what's broken? And what about his war with Big Deon? And is it almost time for Gustavo? Drop all your thoughts down below on all things Snowfall Season 6, Episode 4. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.